Let me make sure I'm all set up here properly. I think so. We're looking good. Double B. What's up? Good morning, early birds. We are early. That's true. Just give me 1 second here. There we go. Lightning Van. Good morning, Ben. Good morning, team. Hope you're doing great, my man. When I grow up, I want to be a Bitcoin. You can't become a Bitcoin, Ben. Right? You can't. It's not possible. You cannot become one. Let's see what we got from Sean. Recommends it's going to be a great week. I think so. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Hirsch. Hope you're doing great. Hoddle T. Good morning. Hope you're doing great. Joseph. Good morning, everyone. Gotta love Monday, starting off with Breakup and Friends. Indeed. It is the best way to start a Monday. Good morning. Time to break up. That's what we say. We're all going to make it. We are all going to make it. And to help you make it, we're going to underline the fakest news we can find on the internet to help protect you, right? But first, let's just acknowledge the sun is up. Hard for me to see through the snow. We got snow right now here in Montreal. Okay, there's snow coming down. I slept in a little today because it was so dark. It was dark until like 6:30. Normally I wake up at 5 o'clock, but somehow with the short days, I'm sleeping in. We don't mean to, but we need the sleep maybe, so that's okay. Let's just acknowledge that although it is dark and the snow is falling, Bitcoin doesn't care. It's running just fine. Let's have a coffee, talk about what's new. King Mensa, gotta read yours, right? Gotta read yours today. And it's happening in Florida. I agree. We love Florida. HBDC, good morning, fellow orange-pilled brethren. Indeed. All right, let's get into some Moscow time. What's the fakest news I can find? Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci has been awarded the 2024 Ina Mori Ethics Prize by Ina Mori International Center for Excellence and Ethics. Well, good for him. That's really nice, Fauci. We have another prize that we talk a lot about here. It's called the Space Drop Prize. He might win. I think he might be the ultimate global winner. So he might be more of a winner than you think, right? So he won the Ethics Prize. Next up, mass murder drop from space prize. He could get it. Robert E. Lee seems to have won a prize, right? It's probably better than what he's had. But you know the statues of Robert E. Lee? All right. So one of them has been melted in secret and in a symbolic ceremony and has been remade into inclusive art. It's been remade into inclusive public art. So there you go. It's inclusive now. Much better. Oh, this is related to Fauci, but this is what ABC News is saying. This is from ABC News, right? So remember, ABC News. Older adults who received last year's COVID booster and a high-dose version of the flu vaccine in the same visit may have potential increased risk of stroke, according to a new FDA-funded study. So if you went in there and got your COVID booster and you're like, give me more vaccines, it's not going well for you, apparently, according to ABC News, right? It's not going well for you. Don't do that. Don't say, give me more needles when you go in. Okay, just a tip. I'm not a doctor. Never come here for medical advice, right? We're only talking about Bitcoin and psychological operations here. That's about it, right? But I'm not a doctor, but I do have a little bit of advice, right? One needle at a time, guys. One needle at a time, okay? Time magazine. This one's pretty good, right? So the cover is all scribbles and everything on this tweet. And this is just in case you're stressed out about World War III and all that kind of stuff, right? So this is really timely and helpful stuff from Time magazine. 3 ways anxiety can actually help you. Yay, let's all get anxious. We love it. Don't be anxious about this stuff, though. Superintendent cancels Halloween, so you don't have to worry, right? You don't have to worry someone might dress up in an outfit or something. By the way, in my homeschool thing on Friday, everyone was like Pocahontas, and they don't care. It's great. It's funny. Superintendent cancels Halloween, bans costumes in school, citing DEI and the potential to harm students' dignity, right? So this is in New Jersey. I guess Halloween isn't enough of a preponderance in their community. So no more Halloween, right? Oh, Barron's has some great advice for us this morning. Okay, Barron's, it's like a financial magazine, and everybody says, oh, if you want to learn about what fancy economists are thinking about and talking about, and if you want to sound smart, read one of these investment magazines. And Barron's is one of them, one of the biggest, in fact. And their cover today is time to buy bonds. Buy bonds, everyone. Okay, and now this is my favorite. My favorite in Moscow time is when I get a really nice, crisp Moscow time, but it fits into our theme. Like when I can put them right next to each other like puzzle pieces. That's my favorite, right? So I'm going to read you a tweet thread from Washington Post, our favorite, our absolute favorite, right? Remember, some people sit around and think about Rome all the time. I sit around and think about how Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, has this great idea to lose $100 million a year. It's amazing, right? He's such a smart guy. Why not? He can afford it, guys. That's probably the answer. It's just $100 million a year. Of course, he wants to keep a disreputable institution going. Why not? If it only costs $100 million a year to keep the lowest form of journalism alive, why not? Right? It totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. So all those guys out there thinking about Rome, apply that to me, but it's actually Jeff Bezos and Amazon and the Washington Post. But here's their Twitter thread, right? So remember we did an episode last week about how it's been 1 year, right? 1 year since we got the bird's eye view, since we could get Twitter to be unshackled from third-party censors, and we're able to see the Twitter files and all that stuff, right? A big advantage. I've been talking about it for a long time. Feels like a real turn in World War III. Washington Post kind of sees it the other way. All right. They don't see it the way we saw it last week. Remember I said, has there ever been a business that has pivoted harder than X? Really? I mean, ask yourself the question. Have you ever seen a business in the history of our planet pivot harder than X? I can think of maybe Nintendo from before you ever heard about what Nintendo was, when it was just a playing card game, and then they turned into a home computer personal console game. Maybe them, but I don't think they were a big company yet. They were just playing cards out of Kyoto in Japan, and no one outside of Kyoto or probably Japan had ever heard of Nintendo until they came up with the family computer, which is what it's called in Japan, by the way. Nintendos are called family computers, right? It's a great branding name. So here's what Washington Post said, right? About what we said last week was the greatest exercise in corporate change ever, right? So here's what Washington Post says. 1 year after billionaire Elon Musk bought Twitter, now named X, for $44 billion to revive its business and make it less woke, the site's business outlook appears dire. They're losing users, advertisers, and revenue. The number of people who actively tweeting has dropped by more than 30%. Is that true? It's according to the Dana Pfeffer, who used to be a White House communications director under Obama. So where is their data coming from here? Probably all made up, right? They don't give any citation. I did not read the article. I'm just reading their Twitter thread. Through dramatic product changes, sudden policy shifts, and his own outsized presence on the platform, Musk is rapidly re-engineered who has a voice on a service that used to be the hub of real-time news and global debate. It's not anymore. It's back to Washington Post is what they're saying. A site that fueled social movements such as the Arab Spring, Black Lives Matter, and Me Too has veered noticeably rightward under Musk, especially in the United States. While dozens of conservative and right-wing accounts saw their follower counts rise the day Musk became owner and continue to rise at a rate higher than before, none of the dozens of popular left-wing and liberal accounts examined had the same pattern. Oh my God. None of them got it. None of the Washington Post writers got a bump. Oh shit. The world's ending. Washington Post keeps going. Researchers, our favorite. We love researchers. Researchers say a broader political shift took shape in April when Musk dismantled the platform's system for verifying the authenticity of notable accounts. In its place, Musk's new system allows anyone can get verified for just $8 a month. What a bunch of jerks. The overall impact of these changes has been to degrade the public's ability to find authoritative information and making Twitter central to disseminating unproven narratives. according to NewsGuard. We're going to talk about NewsGuard in a second. A nonpartisan company, guys. It's nonpartisan. Don't worry. It monitors media credibility. It's nonpartisan. NewsGuard, nonpartisan. Don't worry about it, right? Just think of that sentence one more time, right? They say this out in public. They say this out loud, right? And if we are dropping people from space one day, I want to read this tweet before one of the Washington Post people gets dropped. I think it's really important to just explain to them why we're dropping you from space, right? Imagine saying this in the climate that we're in. The overall impact of these changes has been to degrade the public's ability to find authoritative information. We're degraded, guys. We can't find authoritative. We're degraded. We're degraded. So, of course, now here's, you get that context, right? Now, yesterday, Elon tweets. So, two different planets. Okay, it's two different planets. You get one group saying, oh, you can't actually navigate the news anymore, right? Now, everyone who actually uses Twitter is talking about this change, right? So this morning, Elon said that the community notes application will no longer have revenue sharing next to it. So if something gets community noted, the creator revenue sharing won't follow it, right? Okay, so it's like a niche little change to some accounts. So that's what's going on, right? So in the world of people who actually follow Twitter and are making a fortune off of it, they're saying, well, I don't know about this, Elon. This is a big change. What the community notes and the payout that comes with it. So it's this little obscure thing, right, that users are actually thinking about today, right? Versus what they said it was all about. No one can determine what the news is. Not only that, Musk is going to be coming up with the banking applications this year. It looks like now X becoming the banking app is going to, I think anyways, perpetuate what we've all wanted to see for a long time, which is a financial system that is much more P2P than trusted third parties. Because in the end, it's a theme that we've been pulling on for a while, that Satoshi's white paper about P2P electronic cash networks actually applies to all third-party entities anywhere in the world, pretty much, especially those that involve themselves in information laundering, which looks identical to financial money laundering, right? So the money laundering regime, which relies on third parties, trusted third parties, in order to perpetuate it, right? We've seen the deputization of banks by the deep state already after the Kennedy assassination. This allowed for many forms of distortion about how money went around the world and which money was checked and which money wasn't checked. And the entire edifice was copied almost part and parcel when it comes to information laundering. It's almost the exact same form. And we know that, especially when we look at what Mike Benz and people like that are saying. So Mike Benz has a really great thread, as he usually does, right? We're seeing this more and more, this time on Bill Barr. So part of the Bill Barr story always bothered me because it was Bill Barr who went out of his way in the last days of the Trump administration when it looked like the cheat was in. It was he who went to Hong Kong to arrest Arthur Hayes. And it was his DOJ, not a Biden Democrat one. It was his. And it was his that gave the blueprint. And it was his DOJ that was not talking about the similarities between what FTX was doing and what BitMEX was doing, and why FTX got a pass and why BitMEX didn't, which is something I still and always wonder about. So forget about everything we've talked about before with the FTX sponsoring of the elections market. That's one thing, right? The FTX sponsoring of the elections market, absolutely one thing and an important thing. But this was a little bit different, right? This was just that, if you guys didn't know, FTX was an exact copy of BitMEX, except it went one extra leverage level, right? The BitMEX machine, it was a gambling machine. It was a 100x leveraged bet on the price of Bitcoin. And everyone who played it knew it was a gambling machine, right? It was absolutely a way to gamble on the price of Bitcoin. And it had huge volumes. People loved playing the video game. It was hilarious. Everyone was spinning the wheel, trying to get some Bitcoin out of it. Arthur Hayes, who created it, knew what he was doing. He wanted a max leverage system that was a lot of fun, and that could benefit from volatility of Bitcoin with everyone placing bets and things like that. FTX was an identical copy, except they made it a 101x. They added one extra thing, right? So so that's what ended up happening. So so we're going to talk about the shitcoin stuff and all that. Yeah, it's possible. I'm not doubting it, but nevertheless, directionally, it's in our favor. So that's why I'm talking about it in this context, right? So yeah, it looks like Bill Barr is complicit. Here's Hans Monkey, who I never know how to pronounce his name, but I like the guy. The latest Barr interview is revealing, but not for his criticism of Trump. We knew all of that already. What's so astonishing is that Barr still appears to be totally unaware that his hand-picked Ukrainian investigator, Scott Brady, was derailed by the FBI. We'll get into that stuff otherwise. Mike Benz adds to that. Yeah, totally unaware. Bill Barr, the CIA's fixer for the DOJ during Iran-Contra 1.0, is now completely unaware of the DOJ fix for Iran-Contra 2.0 today in Ukraine, when he was literally #1 head of the DOJ at this time. If there were any records, he would have destroyed them, right? So he's talking a little bit about where he even comes from. He goes into Bill Barr's history about how Bill Barr had been working for these people for a long time. He joined the that edifice a while ago. And what is the edifice? Well, he's been describing it for a long time now. It looks a little bit like this. Do you remember the CBS journalist, Catherine Herridge? Remember, she was the only one that actually followed through on the Hunter Biden laptop case. And she actually had it verified on CBS News a year ago. It was like January, February, where she got some people there that came out and said, you know, this is what's happening. You know, she came out and said this was clearly overstepped by the FBI. The Hunter Biden laptop appears real. So now she's getting investigated, right, with contempt charges. So here's IT guy talking about it. Catherine Herridge, now a reporter for CBS News, was ordered in August to disclose the identity and motive of the source who provided information about an FBI investigation into a Chinese scientist. But Ms. Herridge, during a deposition after the order was handed down, refused to answer questions regarding the identity of her confidential sources. The regime wants to lock her up for not revealing a source related to China, in case you're wondering where we are in this story. So here's the only journalist that I think, I mean, I don't know anything about her. I don't know anything about her. What I know is that she was the one person in the entire fake news complex that had enough wherewithal, seriousness, forthrightness to actually go and ask a basic question. Was this super large censorship ring that came around the Hunter Biden laptop, was it justified? She did this before any of the investigations of the GOP and blah, blah, blah. She just seemed to do this on the whim of a journalist. The thing we think makes the world go round, which is not even a force that we can even measure, right? Other than some independent people doing it, but not from a third party institutional way, right? That's gone, right? It's gone. So there she is doing journalism, right? As good as you can do it. And now they're trying to find out her sources, China, this and that, right? So Mike Benz broke down the Bill Barr, DOJ, what's going on with CBS a little deeper, and tried to answer some of these questions. When he underlined the approach that people are taking with this, you know, ADL, and where the whole middleware choke point came from, right? So in case you don't know, the thing he's been talking about for a long time, Mike Benz, is this capacity to turn NewsGuard and other third-party apparatus systems into actual censorship, to make them part of the censorship industrial complex. And the way he describes that happening, and it's been happening for a long time, is that you take, and it really started after 2016, right? After 2016, I guess it was the Google Jigsaw was one of the first things, and that actually comes from the guy from the ADL. I think he worked at the State Department before. He describes the following job. There is a position inside the State Department that liaises between ambassadors and that liaises between ambassadors and the CIA. All right. So this thing was created, according to him, and by some National Security Act at the end of World War II. Right. So 47, 48. And the job of this thing is to coordinate what's going on in the CIA, what's going on with their clandestine operations. We're getting involved in this election or that election, and we're seeding fake news here or there, or we're sending money here or there. And then that allows the ambassador of that country to be aware of what's going on, right? So it's a sort of off the books communication channel that sits inside of the State Department and has for a long time. And this is where they cycle through a lot of academics and public personalities. Francis Fukuyama, he did a whole big piece on it. That's the fellow who wrote The End of History. So he's been actually occupying this job for a long time. He was the liaison, and they put them in academia. And then from academia, they can continue to do the same job. His whole piece on the Stanford Internet Observatory is that it sits within this apparatus. And that's where this fella who was working on the original 2014 Ukraine Russia thing, right? So the Russian ambassador at the time, or sorry, the American ambassador for Obama to Russia during that period is now in charge of the Stanford Internet Observatory, where a lot of the stuff gets actioned and mobilized. So NewsGuard grew out of there. It grew out of the desire to use this middleware piece as the new censorship apparatus. And it looks like there's going to be no choice for this, because if you look at what's going on in the state of Missouri versus Joe Biden, that legal case that we've been talking about for a while, right? So if you haven't seen this, this is the case where the Supreme Court now is going to be looking at the federal government tapping third parties to exercise censorship over the internet, something they can't do on their own. So it's exactly looking at these NewsGuard cases. It's exactly looking at the Stanford Internet Observatory, basically anything that's getting authority delegated to it by the federal government or by federal entities, anything that's being pumped into the censorship industrial complex in one of these third-party roles, those are going to get targeted by this Missouri case. So let's just have a quick look at the Missouri case and you'll see what I mean. Hold on a second. So the Missouri case, let me see where it is. Pretty sure I got the notes. Well, anyway, the fella in Missouri, yeah, there it is. So here it is. We took that evidence to court, got a nationwide injunction, and defended that injunction twice. This is the Attorney General of Missouri saying. So defended that injunction twice at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The score is now Missouri 3, Biden 0 in the fight for free speech, and we're heading to the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl in this case being the Supreme Court will look at it. So it's been a week now since they've agreed to it. And when they do, you're going to actually get the Supreme Court to weigh in on whether or not the federal government, which I think we all know is not allowed to censor Americans. Doesn't matter if it's a private business or anyone. If a private business is forced to follow a delegated authority from the federal government to do these things, it can't do it, because you can't delegate an authority you don't have in the first place, right? That's how most administrative and constitutional law, that's a principle you always have to remember. You cannot delegate what you don't have to begin with. Anyone who delegates a thing they don't have, it's automatically unconstitutional. So, for example, if a state in the United States, right, a state in the United States would try to delegate something that's clearly under federal authority, they can't. They just don't have the power. You can't give a thing you never had in the first place. So in this case, the Supreme Court entering this conversation, I think we know where it's going to head. Now, the political fallout of that is going to be very different, right? They're going to have to pass laws. But nevertheless, this idea of starting to corner third-party information sources is going to become more and more of a main theme of the election. You know, Trump started this fake news attacks, right? He was the first one who said, you know, the news is fake. And what did we say? We were like, well, yeah, he's right? You know, there's like some real news and then there's some fake news, right? But Trump kept going and he kept saying it's all fake. Only now do we realize it's all fake. There's nothing there. It's the whole thing is a production for purposes that we can only understand if we're able to follow money and we're able to understand how money and control and hypnosis works and how all of these things work, right? And you wouldn't see that otherwise. Now, it goes even more subtle than all of that, of course, right? The censorship industrial complex has been leaning on Hollywood and the entertainment sector just as much, right? We've talked many times about how the State Department actually operates a news and military coordination office where they can give Hollywood production the tools it needs to make a movie, right? A tank, a bomb, this and that, technical reference, things like that. But at the same time, they have to have the script controlled, right? So one movie that did not do that, for example, would be Winter Soldier from Captain America and Marvel, right? Where people are like, whoa, what's going on here? Because they talked about exactly this stuff, right? They talk about how a soldier was kidnapped and brainwashed and turned into these things. But that's a movie that they would never have gotten permission to do, right? Now, Disney itself, this weekend, for example, getting completely destroyed, really just destroyed, right? So I don't know if you guys saw it, but South Park finally came out with its with its targeted Disney takedown called the Panderverse. So it turns out that, and what's great about it is the person who's in charge of destroying Star Wars, a woman named Kathleen Kennedy, right? So she worked for Lucasfilm when he sold it, when George Lucas sold it to Disney, and then she took over the job when she entered Disney. And so she goes into the job, and it looks like, anyway, she's turned the whole company into her own struggle session for her own personal psychology. The whole thing looks like a projection now. That's just me doing pattern recognition, but we continue to see these women characters, whammons, they're just overcoming the odds and beating everyone. If anyone has even seen that dog shit sequel trilogy for Star Wars, I've only seen it one time of each movie, by the way. And I'm a person who would go. I went to The Phantom Menace, a movie some people don't like. I went to The Phantom Menace 7 times in the theater because I loved it. Loved it, right? I was a huge Phantom Menace fan. Still am. I still love The Phantom Menace, right? Of course, there's other movies I like more, but I was a huge Phantom Menace fan. So Kathleen Kennedy, who produced all these movies, but if you listen to what Steven Spielberg has actually said about her on he's said it out loud, recorded in public, is that she was really good at getting coffee and all of this kind of stuff. Didn't like that, right? So South Park does this episode, and she comes out, and it's actually Kathleen Kennedy. So she finds something called the Pander Stone, right? The Pander Stone is something that Disney has been using that gives you unlimited content if you just race and gender swap the main characters. So the Pander Stone lets you do that, right? So they have this special ability, but it rips a hole in the multiverse. And then there's a Cartman who is Kathleen Kennedy who comes out, who wants to make everything more lame and shitty, just ruin everything. So what's amazing is they blamed Kathleen Kennedy and all of this stuff on why Disney has become such trash and stupid. But none of this is why I'm reading it, right? I'm reading this to show you just how subversive some of these forces on that side for censorship were. And we know because there's an actress named Gina Carano. So this Gina Carano woman, right? Very beautiful. She was a star on the show, and then she said a joke about someone going beep bop boop or something like that, right? She said beep bop boop about an NPC being completely robotic, and they fired her, right? So there was a big public outrage when they fired her, and so they had to rehire her. And then it ended up not consummating, right? So she disappeared. We didn't really know the whole story, right? So when this South Park episode came out on Kathleen Kennedy, Gina Carano wrote this tweet, which I'll read to you, which is not only funny, it shows what they tried to pull on her, right? It shows you just how deep this trusted third-party system of self-censorship and censorship has gotten, right? So here's what she says. This is the part where Kathleen Kennedy demands any YouTubers get censored off of YouTube for sharing and laughing at this hilarious episode. She'll have YouTube disable and the thumbs down option because of the ratio she'll receive. Because this is what happened. You know how we don't have thumbs down and thumbs up now on YouTube? That's where it comes from. It comes from the Gina Carano backlash story. Can you believe that this thing changed YouTube, that you can't see the thumbs down anymore, right? So because of the ratio she'll receive, that's the thumb down thing. Then she'll have her publicist ghouls make sure Variety and Hollywood Reporter run hit pieces about the South Park creators and their families, smearing their names through every useful idiot she has under her thumb who will sell their soul to work for Lucasfilm. She'll activate her online mob to repeat that the South Park creators are racists, super racists, bigots, transphobes, and demand that the South Park creators publicly apologize by only using words she approves of. And finally, she'll demand any subject themselves to a re-education course of 45 people in the LGBTQ plus community Zoom call to sit there and listen to how badly they got their feelings hurt all over a little boop of a South Park episode. But maybe, just maybe, the jig is up. So now I think the jig is up because they had to come out the same day, and now they've released. So you remember how I said the Daily Wire is going to go straight for Disney with a new Snow White episode, but it's just going to be like Snow White instead of Snow White and the Seven, ambiguously gay something. So so she's got this new so we saw images come out of the Snow White thing, and then suddenly it's been delayed a year. They've CGI'd in dwarves again, but they're not like human dwarves, they're drawings. So they can sort of get away with it, but they look like AI ghouls. They look terrible. So it looks like they're going to have to reshoot all of Snow White now. And I don't know if they're really going to do that or not, but this whole Pandaverse thing, right, I think is starting to turn what we need to happen, which is laughing at all of these people, laughing at Joe Biden, laughing at the Pandaverse and Disney, because these are the forces that would hypnotize you, that would brainwash you. And one of the keys to breaking brainwashing, one of the keys is that the sources where the brainwashing comes from become comedic and stupid, and you can laugh at them. Laughter and not wanting to be, the fear of being laughed at is a major motivation that humans have. Like, it's a huge motivation. And to be amongst a group that others are laughing at is usually fatal, right? I've said many times that laughter in politics is over, right? If you get laughed at, now Trump gets laughed at, but it's an anger thing, right? It's more like trying to hurt him. It's not really like everyone together, ha ha ha, laughs, right? That's not really what's going on. I'd say he came close in the days where the election, right after the election, remember they got trolled into the Four Seasons press conference with Rudy Giuliani, and it was that was bad, right? Not because of the logic, but the idea that they were so stupid, and that everyone really was laughing at them, including me, and I didn't want to be laughing at them, right? It was deadly serious, but you had to laugh at them. So that's what's going on right now. And then just the idea of the media and laughing at them, right? That's why we do Moscow Time and all that stuff. Now, 60 Minutes, which we've identified as one of the biggest fake news sources going, right? There's not much faker than 60 Minutes. They did a big piece last night on Kamala Harris, right? And all she really did was talk about the decor in her office. Like, she literally walked them around showing them decor, and they did a whole episode on that. Joe Concha says, this used to be a reputable show asking tough questions before it became the PR shop for a major political party and campaign. And again, I will tell you, you know how many people ask me my time in politics, understanding politics, working next to politics, and all of this stuff, and they'll say, is that House of Cards show, is that real? Right? No, the most real one there is Veep. It's Veep. And the vice president we have now solidifies that for me. Veep, starring the girl from Seinfeld, right? Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, by the way, I don't know if you guys don't know the Louis-Dreyfus family name. You got to look in. It's like a Rothschild family thing, right? They literally invented commodity trading in France, right? So she is not just rich, crazy rich. And even the Dreyfus affair was her family. That's what led to the creation of Israel, by the way, right? Louise Dreyfus's own family, Jewish Parisian family, led to the creation of Israel, because the Dreyfus affair was a scandalous thing that happened in France around the turn of the century, where a Jew was accused of murder, and it was like everyone knew it wasn't true. It was a political hit, and they ended up, convicting the guy. And the Dreyfus affair turned into a thing where the French Jews said, we got to decamp. This place isn't going to be safe for us anymore. We got to get out of here. So it was like an anticipation of World War II. And many people who saw it, many people who founded Israel were there when this happened for that, and realized they need a country like that. That was it. There was no way around it. Something like the Holocaust was coming, and they needed a place to run. And so it was those original folks that ended up creating Israel that were there. I can't remember some of the names. Very famous names of early Jewish leaders that were there, by the way. So some, one of the most famous who created it was even born Jewish, became totally Christian for his whole life, and is known as like one of the founders of Israel. I can't, very famous name who you'd recognize, but I can't seem to remember right now. So anyway, that's the Julia Louise Dreyfus piece. But speaking again of media and how much it's changing, right? So remember that we get Daily Wire now competing against Disney. That stunts a bit of the brainwashing capacity of these untrustable third parties, right? So these ones that would brainwash you, like Disney, losing capacity. The news, we've been talking about the loss of capacity, but look at the opposite, right? So talking about Twitter and becoming a bank and monetizing. Chamath writes here that he's going to hire a CEO for All In. It's not just like, rich people running their own podcast because there's a pandemic anymore. This is going to be mobilized into a real media asset. And he says here, we've decided to hire a CEO for our All In. Old media is broken. Talking heads, selling ads, and citing anger with one-sided discourse has become tiresome and is deeply damaging to the social fabric. We want to tackle this error and create a new kind of media and live events brand and business. We have an amazing start with passionate fans, tremendous reach and credibility. Now we want to build out the all-in community and deliver more content, amazing live in-person experiences and events, and tools to support our active community. We need a CEO to help us achieve our goals. So if you want to apply, go for it. But I think this is a great thing that these guys, because I don't think it's going to grow to such a size that it won't be nimble. I don't think you'll need more than 5 or 6 people ever working for this thing to make it hum, like really hum, right? So you get that, right? And so the change is sort of coming from that, and the ability to have all of these people on X and all of this independent media can only lead to good things, right? For example, we're starting to understand much more about the corruption of the president, right? So as well as the new speaker, this guy looks like garbage, right? This new speaker looks like garbage. At least he's going to do the only important thing that we need in America right now, which is separating spending for the various wars, right? You don't want to combine spending for all the wars. It's dumb, right? But this guy looks like trash, so we'll see. We won't go that far on him, but he doesn't look like he's going to do much for us, right? But let's go back to the media and its failings, right? Benny Johnson writes the following: they know Joe Biden is guilty. They have a mountain of evidence against him, right? There's the form, 17 audio recordings, 40 human sources now. Yet the FBI is withholding that evidence because they want leverage over him. This is a classic blackmail operation. This is exactly why they had to destroy Donald Trump. They didn't have any leverage over him, so they fabricated stories about him, the Steele dossier, the impeachment hoax, Box's hoax. Not only that, you know what has come to my attention lately? Scott Adams brought it up, and now I can't stop thinking about it either. Imagine that the last day in office, the January 6th thing, right? Had they not done that, he would have spent 4 years and he would have destroyed every single one of these attack vectors that they had tried to plant and create over the years, right? He didn't lock anyone up in a concentration camp. He didn't reinstill slavery, right? Like all the boogeyman things they said about him weren't true. So they needed one boogeyman thing, because otherwise he'd have been able to say, well, I was a great president, right? Without anyone being able to have something easy to cite. Now, of course, it is, well, you mean January 6th? I talk, my poor credentialist friends, they're lawyers, they're rich, they think they're doing great. And you talk to them about this stuff, right? You didn't dump him on January 6th, they asked me. And I said, no, it really took me to the last day when he didn't pardon Assange and Ross and Ed. It took me to them. They can't even understand the reference. They're like, what? It wasn't when he tried to destroy the country. Poor fellas. Could you imagine your brain being that? It's sad. It really is sad, right? So the Biden probe started as a foreign agent money laundering investigation and has been whittled down to one gun charge. How does that work? It's called a state protection. Joe Biden is a state asset. And do we know this for sure? It's getting closer and closer that it's almost impossible to disagree with this assessment, right? And all of this comes down to, look, we've got understanding how this blackmail stuff works, right? Everyone this morning talking about Epstein again, right? The Epstein client list. Where's the Epstein stuff? But now that we know, looking at the Biden thing, how deep this blackmail system goes, right? We had Michael Flynn, right, the author of 5G Warfare, say the following yesterday on one of these internet shows. He said, former director of the DIA, General Mike Flynn, blatantly states that some of our legislators are compromised by globalist actors due to their trips overseas where they sleep with, what the last word is. DC politicians are on Epstein's client list. Something I think we all know, but to actually have people now saying it out loud that might know for sure, like him, it's a change. It really is a change. Now, he says a lot of stuff, so he could just be consuming the same content as everyone else online and getting confused. I still don't believe there's an actual list. It's not like someone would write it down, right? Like, where's that old list of people we can blackmail when we want, right? I don't know if it's exactly that, but it's probably not far. There's probably someone who's tried to say, well, who's on it? Like I said, I don't think that Epstein and Ghislaine kept it, right? Like I said, no one would just keep a list of oh, who's that person? We got to go get him, right? But the trusted third party piece to this, right? The media, the banks, seeing that blackmail is just baked into the cake, right? These are all things that can really trigger people into reconsidering everything. But again, the one that I wanted to bring up, the last one before we talk about elections in Argentina and America, the last one I want to bring up is the Kennedy one, because I think I forgot to mention it last week. And this is the Robert F. Kennedy personal security story, right? So we've been talking for a while about Trump, right? Maybe Trump doesn't make it till next summer. I mean, I'm starting to program, like, I really do believe I'm going to be able to get Trump for Bitcoin 2024 because it's the week after the Republican convention. But it's more like I'm now planning on, how, like, fallout for what they do to him, because I don't think he gets to there. Either they can't run any more of these character assassination Watergate type efforts, right? Those seem to be failing. He's been arrested how many times? No one cares. Everyone thinks it's stupid. Every time he's arrested, it exposes the corruption more and more. So what are they going to do with it? Are they just going to let him run? I don't think so. Right now, again, we talk a lot about the backups, but how far are they going to go with this stuff? You take Kennedy, right? I mentioned the story about Kennedy the other day. They're always trashing him. So he goes out and gets, his own private security because he keeps asking them to provide Secret Service detail for him, which is already strange because he will say Secret Service killed his dad and uncle. But I get why he would want to vet some of them and have his own, because the threats are real. This is what happened to him. He had someone climb his walls the other day at the end of the week, and they arrested him. He was threatening him, right? He came back the same night. They let him out. Catch and release, right? Trump used to say catch and release was, and they would say, oh, that's right, no one does catch and release, right? It's catch and release everywhere now. So there you go, catch and release coming right to Kennedy's door. Now, how many of these people are they going to kill? Is it going to be Kennedy, Musk, Trump? Musk doing the bank thing, I think, is the last straw. I mean, what are they going to just let him have P2P transactions across the world? Now, I understand Justin says shitcoin, maybe, probably, sure, fine, right? But even if it's a shitcoin and it creates a P2P transaction method, remember one of the major things about Bitcoin that allows it to circumvent third parties is because it's a bearer instrument where the cryptographic key itself transmits the information, right? So you're not logging in, you are actually trading the credential, right? The credential is the money in a sense, right? So by making cryptographic keys money the way Bitcoin does, or I understand UTXOs, blah, 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 but let's just say the bearer instrument of it is the key possession. And, as we've learned a long time ago, normal human law, possession is 9/10 of the law, right? In Bitcoin, nope. Possession is 10/10. It's everything. There is nothing else, right? So even if he doesn't create just a pure P2P network, it's going to be able to recognize cryptographic transactions, which means it will have plumbing for things like Bitcoin. I believe. I don't think he's going to create an architecture that has a main ledger that has to be protected in the way that banks have to protect their ledgers. I don't think he's going to create that kind of redundant security architecture around it. I don't believe it, right? So I think he'll do something where there is a shitcoin, right? I can't imagine there won't be a shitcoin. I don't care either, right? As long as the medium allows for Bitcoin to be transacted simultaneously, which I imagine it will, right? If you're gonna build it like a crypto exchange, you've got to be able to receive and interact with different coins. And I can't imagine he can't do that because it's going to be different countries and different things and blah blah blah. So one can only imagine that it will be something like that, right? So we'll get that piece in. Now, when everyone starts getting scaled into understanding the architecture of a blockchain and Bitcoin, right, you start getting into a situation where the arguments that we've had online, shitcoins, Ethereum, everything like that, start going a little more broad, right? So imagine if everyone on Twitter understood the engineering trade-offs around Bitcoin, the credibility and convenience trade-offs that I always refer back to here, right? Because again, it is that context that allows you to also understand the failures of third parties, right? Any one of these third parties are living by the same engineering truths that Bitcoin is: credible and convenient. These are universal tensions within building these systems, and none of the third party fake news architecture can get away from it, right? They're not credible. Right? They're just getting answers fed to them by third-party institutions like NewsGuard or like all this middleware stuff, right? Imagine putting middleware into speech. We're trying to get rid of third parties in general, and they're trying to add more, right? So that really is the fight of World War III. That's why World War III, with a wink from the simulation, is about third parties. It's literally about third parties. And so when you see things like this, Patrick Byrne, right? No, is that his name? Yeah, Patrick Byrne, right? Now, Patrick Byrne, absolutely compromised state asset. All right, let's not deny that. I know him. I've met him many times. He was one of the original Bitcoiners, Overstock CEO. I booked him to do a keynote in 2019 on 10 years of Bitcoin. It was him and Adam Back. I chose him because he was one of the first people to put Bitcoin on his balance sheet. He was one of the first like normie CEOs to get into Bitcoin. And of course, I met his Russian girl, whatever was going on there. And it turned out that he was totally blackmailed, totally compromised, and comes out and says it. They tried to get him to turn on Trump. And so he came out and said, no. These people are as corrupt as you can imagine. So he tried to fight against the result of the 2020 election. And that's why they banned him from this and banned him from that. Now they treat him like he's crazy right now. Now, again, I'm not vouching for the guy, right? I've met him. He comes with credibility issues, but you can't deny that the things he's saying resonate as truthful now. And this is what he's saying about Argentina, right? So he has not left the 2020 battlefield. He has still been occupying the arguments around 2020 and everything that went on, right? And of course, we all found out this week as well that the Wi-Fi, the machines in Georgia all had Wi-Fi. The Dominion machines all have like a secret Wi-Fi. So did you know that the pillow guy, My Pillow, right? He's invented a device that can detect illegal Wi-Fi, and they're trying to ban him from doing that. Did you hear that? So the guy, Mike Lindell, has invented a device that you can bring to polling stations. He paid for it with his own money. That you can bring to polling stations, and you can find out if there's Wi-Fi in the machine. And there are states trying to make that illegal. So here's what Patrick Byrne says, and he's referring to the election we just had in Argentina. And he says, yesterday in Argentina, a left-wing Peronist economics minister who has delivered 140% inflation and a collapse of the Argentina economy, and who got skunked in August's primary, won in an upset victory. What technology powered the election? Our old friends at Smartmatic. So, as you know, there were presidential elections the other day in Argentina. The strange thing was that the most popular candidate before the election, Milei, did not win. Everyone was surprised when the results went against almost all opinion polls, right? Right. Where did we see that before? Where did we see this opinion polls and elections not line up? And this other thing is great too. Do you see what's happening in Arizona? So apparently there is just a room in Arizona, right? And if you unlock the room, there's apparently like 500,000 fake ballots inside. And all you got to do is look, and then you'll know, right? So there's the drama of a room somewhere. Now it's probably fake, right? It's probably shit when they get in there, nothing, right? But imagine the whole NewsGuard fake news industrial complex is holding their breath, because it's true. Maybe there is one room out there that can prove this whole thing's a scam. Because again, if you can turn the tide on this election question, right? If you can get people to see the engineering tensions between credibility and convenience, they're going to understand very quickly that they do not live in a country with democracy or elections or anything like that. Right? They do not live in a place like that. And once those decisions are understood, once those realities are understood, there are consequences, and the mind cascades very quickly to how to get out of this problem. And Satoshi told us all, it is that you can't trust any of these third parties. None. The minute you are trusting a third party, you are lost. The minute. That's Republican, Democrat, whatever it is, there is no limit. Even Bitcoiners are very easy to manipulate, when they don't understand that the engineering of Bitcoin actually applies to all civil architecture, all social architecture. We're starting to wake up to it. So that's the good news, right? Let's see what we got in comments. That's all the main theme I got today. Isn't Bitcoin beautiful? Isn't it? You know right away that gamblers on those highly levered exchanges don't know how it works, because it comes with a baked-in lottery. Plug an old machine and start mining. Yeah. Mockingbird Media. Yeah. You too may win. Hit the thumbs up, fan. We love thumbs up. We love the thumbs up. Right. Lucky for us, we've been laughing at him the whole time. Laughter is the best medicine. Assalamu alaikum. What's up, man? Moscow gang. Bon matin tous. Good morning, everyone. Hello, amigo. ¿Cómo está? Where do I start? I'm doing great. Enjoying the snow. Dylan, what's up, my man? Good morning, Dylan. Hope you're doing great, man. Haven't seen you since beautiful Amsterdam. That was great. Mondays are better with Bitcoin. The breakup breakfast crew. We love it. We love it. We love it. The map is the territory. Yeah, we love the maps. I'm a map collector. Cryptographic currency is the credible credential. Indeed. We love alliterations too. Are we breaking out of the echo chamber thanks to the failure of trusted third parties? You like the third parties one? I have it in my book, Trusted Third Parties. And Bitcoin Graffiti gave me some good reviews over the weekend of the NPC guide. Face green smiling. Russian. Bitcoin and Breakup team makes the Monday. Thanks, Nolan. Thanks, Todd. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah, she's always Ghislaine to me. She'll always be Ghislaine to me, guys. She will never not be Ghislaine. Okay, she must be Ghislaine forever. Ghislaine. She's got to be Ghislaine. You can't call her anything else. I know how to say her other name, but I don't do it. Are people still giving credibility to elections and democracy? Yeah, of course. Bitcoin is the only vote that counts. Indeed. CK, great show and happy Monday, fam. CK, give me your impressions of the Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management. I need it. Still appreciating the show, Enmity. We appreciate you appreciating the show. All right, team. That's about all I got for today on this Monday. We shall see y'all tomorrow. There'll be another great show. There'll be more news. Maybe we'll take an easy day one day too, and not talk about all this censorship and all that. There's other stuff in the world. Maybe we'll do one on the book. Can't wait to read your book. Much love, everyone. And thanks for another wonderful start to a beautiful Monday morning, Nolan. Thank you, HBDC. I appreciate it. All right, everyone. When whiteboard, lightning vend. Yeah, yes, sir. We're gonna get the. I forgot to bring the whiteboard from Vermont because the car was packed and we kind of left in a hurry. Not in a hurry, but I didn't plan on. I planned on leaving Friday morning, not Thursday night, if you remember. But we had an issue, so I got to go back and shut the house down totally for the winter. And I won't be bringing my family, so I'll be alone. The car won't be packed, and I will be bringing the whiteboard back, and we will have it here, and it will be great. Can't wait. All right. Peace, guys.